Sub here. Wasn't going to do a video today. Totally slammed with work, trying to get everything done so I can play Black Ops tomorrow. But wanted to do a quick reaction on the audio thing because this, as I did a little video yesterday on Twitter, a lot of people asked me questions about it because I've done a lot of research on this and did some videos, and people want to know this new Black Ops 6 audio. What's the deal with it? What's going on? Why does it exist? And is it a scam or not? JGOD just did a video. I'm going to play a little snippet of it where he kind of talks about the head scan and what's going on. And then from there, I just want to delve a little bit into actually what it is, because this is something I actually know about. And so let me play the video, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going on, what it's trying to do, and whether or not it's a scam. So let's take a look and see. So this is JGOD's video, came out yesterday, and we're gonna just talk about, he's gonna go over kind of what the app does, what this software does, and then I'm gonna talk about why it does it.
They want you to scan this, whatever this QR code is, and then you're going to scan your face, which when it looks at it, I'm like, how, like, are they selling snake oil?
Most people think the same thing.
To grant camera permissions.
So you have the camera permission,
Make
right?
Sure your ears are visible.
Gonna scan.
So they want you to scan your face and your ears.
Bring the phone up to your face until the
there's a whole
outline
science
is
behind
complete.
this that's been around
Hold
off
your
and
phone
on.
still.
And
slowly turn your head to the
if
left.
if you've done anything with the audio stuff, like you probably these topics
How is
are
that
familiar.
improving the audio? I can't fathom. So that's what the $20 pays for. The QR code and the ear scan, which somehow is supposed to improve your audio.
Okay. So let's talk about this real quick. I won't leave JGOD up there smiling. All right. So here's the thing with audio. Audio is one of those things that, and I've said this in my previous video, is easily one of the most complicated, nerdy, like hard to grasp things when it comes to like gaming and entertainment, right? Like the audio is probably the one thing that you can't like wing it, right? You can't. It is all science. It's all math. It's all like just excessive in that way, where things like graphics, like anybody can look at graphics and be like, oh, that looks good. Anybody can, play a game and tell you, anybody can tell you if the controls are good, and they can tell you what's good or bad about the controls, right? Because they're familiar with the controls and how they work, because it's such an intuitive thing, right? If the button mapping is weird, if the response on the thumbsticks or the mouse doesn't, is delayed, like we know that. We can identify that and be like, oh, that's what it is, and that's super weird and it makes it hard to play. With audio, there's no winging it. It's all science, and that's why audio is so hard to master, especially when it comes to talking about it, because there's so much that goes on we just didn't really think about, right? So here's the thing with audio. Now, anybody who's a creator who's watching this, and anybody who frankly like has videotaped themselves, and hey, we're in the 21st century, so everybody does that because we all do selfies and that stuff. When you play it back, the biggest complaint is like, I don't sound like that. That sounds terrible. That's not me. And the reality is that when we hear ourselves recorded, we don't hear the same sound, the same voice that we hear ourselves talk with. And the reason for that is actually when we talk, our voice echoes inside of our head and goes to our ears. So when you are talking, you're not hearing your voice. You're hearing your voice reverberating inside your skull and getting to your eardrums. And that's why when you talk and you don't hear yourself, right, and then you play it back, you actually most people don't recognize their own voice. They're like, that's not how I sound, okay? And the reason for that is because, like I said, your skull is this hard bone dome, right? And what happens is the sound waves, as they emanate out of your throat, they actually will go bounce around in your skull and then make it to your eardrums, okay? And so you will hear the eardrums pick up the vibrations going inside your head. And so internally, that's something that most creators and people that do a lot of video are very familiar with, right? And so it's one of the reasons that I record with IEMs in, because I want to hear I want to hear my own voice back the way that you hear it, and so it makes it easier for me to control my tone and my loudness, and it makes it easier for me to record. But when we hear outside sounds, right? And I've used this example before. We deal with different occlusions, right? And I've talked about this before in terms of like the game, right? Like when I have my phone and I put it in front of my microphone, right? That changes the tone of our voice, right? And you can probably hear, if you've listened to me for a while, that I sound differently, right? Because I'm not in the same space that I was in. I don't have the sound panels and the foam panels that I had behind me. I'm kind of enclosing my space. It's now wide open. I'm in this big shop. It's a mess. I have a ceiling now. I'm working on it. So yay, drywall. But the sound is different, right? So when I listen back to, my podcast last episode, it sounded very different than it did 2 weeks ago when I had my setup going. And it's because the way the sound is bouncing around the room. So what happens is your head, the size and shape of your head changes the way that the sound waves will reverberate in your skull. In the same way, your ears are kind of like, you have to think of your ears of like microphones, right? Different microphones have different patterns and they have different styles. And depending on the microphone you get, it picks up sound differently, right? So your ears and the shape of your ear canal, the sound has to echo its way into your eardrum so you can hear it. And so if you've been to Best Buy or something, you've probably heard of like bone conductor headphones, right? Like they're open ear and they just sit like right here. I guess, yeah, right here on your bone, right? Like right on your jaw, but right above your jawbone. And it will actually vibrate your skull. And so you hear the music without it actually like blasting into your eardrums. It's actually, and so it's kind of a newer technology. Has been around for a while, but it's one of those things where it's using the vibrations of your skull to transmit the audio instead of using your ears. And so when you have different people that have different shaped skulls, they have different sized heads, right? And they have different shaped and sized ears. In theory, right? And there's a lot of science behind this, but the audio will transmit differently for different people. So you can take the same audio with the same headphones and everything's the same, and you put it on different people, and they will all experience the same sound slightly differently. And so this company is basically has a product where they can auto-tune the sound for you based on the characteristics of the size and shape of your head, as well as the shape and size of your ears, to provide better sound. So the science on paper of what they say it does, it's sound, right? It's good science. Whether that translates into good audio in the game, I don't know, right? Like, it's coming out. Let's find out. People are going to test it. I will probably test it because at the very least it's good content. But if it's going again, it's one of those, I don't know if it's going to actually work, right? I'm skeptical, highly skeptical, because while the science is there and while it is true, everything they've said, I don't know how much of a difference it's going to actually make, right? So I think this is going to be one of those things where it's like, you're going to pay $20 and you're going to get like an extra 5%, right? Which for 95% of people is not going to be useful. So that's what's going on. I just wanted to kind of like address that question of like, what is this thing? Why, is this absolute snake oil, as JGOD said? And I think there is science behind it. And so it's not like bad science, but I think it's also reasonable to assume that there's some snake oil in the water, because I just can't for the life of me. I can't for the life of me see this being that big of a difference. So, but Black Ops drops in a couple of days. It might already be out by the time you see this. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see what it sounds like. Looking forward to that. With that, I'm going to bounce. Got some stuff to do. I will see everybody when Black Ops drops, and we'll have a lot of content from there. All right. Thanks for coming by. Catch you next one.